Hello everyone, this is Eva, and you're watching Israeli startup channel ISUP. So today, our crowd is up, and we're with Prescott who's representing our crowd. So, hello Prescott. Our crowd, it's a crowdsourcing venture capital based in Jerusalem. So, could you please tell us more about it?
Yeah, sure. So at OurCrowd, what we're doing is we're providing a new way for angel investors around the world, people who are investing in startups, to find and research and actually make investments in companies based in Israel, but also companies around the world. We're trying to make it easier, more transparent, and actually safer in a way for individuals who want to get involved in early stage companies to actually make those investments that otherwise might be a little bit more difficult for them to access.
This crowdsourcing idea to venture capital is quite new, so could you please tell us about it?
Sure. I really can't take credit for the idea. Our founder, John Medved, has long been one of Israel's most prominent early stage investors. He made Aliyah to Israel from California and afterwards became involved in the tech scene, both working in and out of companies, but also starting one of Israel's early and most important early stage investors, Israel Seed Partners. So they made a lot of investments across the startup scene in Israel, a lot of very important investments, having many large exits. And in this process, he met a lot of people who wanted to get involved in making investments in Israeli startups because they heard about the great returns, they heard about the incredible dynamism of the startup ecosystem, but there's just no way for them to get involved. Because if you want to make a commitment to a venture capital fund, you have to put down $4, $5, sometimes $10 million depending on the fund. And you really sign that money away and you're just hoping for returns a few years from now. On the other hand, he did know a lot of angel investors based in the States who wanted to get involved in Israel, but I mean, if you're an angel investor, it's very local. You want to meet the teams, you want to be able to do diligence on those companies, and you really have to know them. So for years, he's been sitting with Rolodex of thousands and thousands of people who've been asking him, how do I find companies in Israel? And once in a while, you can pick up the phone and call your friend and say, hey, I know you're interested in this space. There's this really hot company coming out of Israel. Why don't you take a look at them? But that's not scalable. So he wanted to take this whole phenomena of Startup Nation and of angel investors who want to get involved in Startup Nation and automate that process and make it scalable, make it transparent, make it easy to access. And that's really what OurCrowd is. That's why we're started, and that's what we're succeeding in doing today.
So could you tell us the difference about this common venture capital process and OurCrowd? How it's different?
Sure. From an entrepreneur's perspective, if you're coming to us looking for investment, we are essentially a VC. You're going to enter a long deal flow process where you're going to be meeting with a professional team of people that do research on your company, looking at your market size, looking at your team, looking at your traction, looking at what type of technology do you have, what protection on that technology do you have. And it's a several-month process, at the end of which if we choose to invest in your company, we'll essentially sign a term sheet with you. Like a VC, we'll try to take a board seat. We'll want to get preemptive rights. We're much more rigorous in this process than a typical angel is because we're acting as a venture capital firm. But once we make that investment, that's where the difference is. We don't have a fund. We're not sitting on top of money. Instead, we make a small investment, generally around $50,000, and then we open up the round to anyone in the world who wants to participate who's an accredited investor on our website. So at that point, the fund is sort of filled with money from people around the world who want to invest in that company, who can then access our research, access our diligence in the company, and choose for themselves if they want to get involved or not.
So can you tell us about the current status of investment and the portfolio companies you have right now?
Yeah, sure. So we launched about a year ago, and to be honest, it surprises even ourselves how quickly things have happened. We knew there was tremendous interest in investing in Israel, and we also knew that crowdfunding as an industry was very big. I think there was an industry report that showed that in 2013 there was over $5 billion raised on crowdfunding platforms around the world. So from there, we knew that we should expect that there would be a lot of growth, but it's really been an incredible ride this first year. We raised about $30 million. Actually, I think we just passed $32 million this week for companies on our platform. But we don't like to focus on how much money we're raising. Our goal is not just to raise tons of money. Our goal is really to make the best investments. And by that metric, I think we're also doing surprisingly well. If you're looking at crowdfunding platforms that focus on startups and you're comparing companies across the board, I think that we're really uniquely positioned because we're taking the approach of venture capitalists. We're focusing on companies that have been backed by serial entrepreneurs, people who have already exited companies in the past. We're investing alongside really top-tier VCs. I mean, we've invested alongside Excel Partners, Index Ventures, Khosla, Israel Healthcare Ventures, JVP. We just invested alongside Li Ka-shing's fund, Horizons Ventures out of Hong Kong. And that's really not an opportunity that a typical angel would get to do. If you're an individual investor putting in $50,000, you don't get the opportunity to invest in a round alongside Khosla Ventures. And that's part of why I think we've grown so fast, because there's tens of thousands of people in the United States who have a significant amount of capital who want to invest, and we've been able to hit the market at the right time. I think that we've done a tremendous job.
People could think they take really little part in the crowdsourcing, and how did you really overcome this weak points? Could you tell us the maybe strong points and also could be the weak points as well to give a more idea?
Sure. There's definitely weak points to crowdfunding that we think we've actually addressed with our platform. A lot of people have come to us and said, I want to invest $100, $200. And, at this stage in our development, we look at that and we say, it'd be one thing to say, yeah, give us your money. But we don't want to do that because there's a lot of drawbacks to taking thousands and thousands of small investors. There's nothing that an entrepreneur could imagine worse, probably, than having a cap table where they see 50,000 people with tiny investments. And, in our experience, there is an inverse relationship between the amount of money you put in and the amount of hassle you give the CEO. So having tons of investors on a cap table that are constantly calling you about, I didn't see the earnings report from here, I'm not happy with this it becomes what we call in Israel a balagan. We think we've addressed that by focusing on trying to definitely get crowds involved in raising money for our companies, but really focusing on people who are willing to put in a significant amount of capital. So the minimum investment is $10,000, and actually, if you look at the average investment made on our platform, it's $35,000 over 3.5 investments per person. So you're really dealing with individuals who have taken into consideration the companies are looking at very seriously. They are generally approaching investing. It's a high-risk endeavor. They're approaching this very intelligently. They're saying, I'm going to allocate a certain percentage of my overall portfolio to this. And because of that, I think that the caliber of involvement from our investors is very high. What do I mean by that? And this comes to actually what crowdfunding is great at, and what we think is going to be the next level for us in terms of crowdsourcing. And that is, we're not just crowdfunding capital, we're not just getting the money for these companies, we're actually going to try crowdfunding business development. And we use this example of how a startup will go to a venture capital fund, get investment through one of the partners or maybe 2 or 3 of the partners like that company and sort of sponsor it within the fund. But then after the capital is dispensed to the company, they get the Rolodexes and the support and the connections of 1 or 2 or 3 partners. Well, we want to blow that completely apart. It's not just going to be you as a company get our Rolodex and my friend's Rolodex. You're going to be getting the support and the connections of thousands of people who have invested in your company and therefore have a financial stake in the success of your company. So we're talking about the involvement of people in industries far and wide who can really provide a lot of not just insight and mentoring and counseling, but also connections and open doors for our companies. And we're already seeing this happening, which is the next big exciting phase that we're going through right now.
So you told me that there's 20 countries who are right now in our crowd. So could you please tell us about the market expansion to be going global in that terms? Could you tell us about that?
Sure, it's really common for Israeli startups to go global, from day one, because the market here is not that large, and you really have to be focusing on selling or attracting customers from abroad. And that was definitely in our strategy from day one, and we've been very successful at that. We do have a lot of Israeli investors, but we have several thousand investors from the United States. We have investors from Bulgaria, Spain, Hungary, Germany, the UK. We have investors from Korea. We have an investor from Japan. We have investors from China. And that's the first step. We want to form a global investor base, people who all around the world have either already been making investments in startups and want to start looking at Israeli startups, or there's people who haven't even made an investment in a private company in their life, but they say to themselves, I might as well try. There's no risk, there's no cost to just looking at this deal flow, and they join us. The next step is to really take our platform global, and that means, yes, we're focused on Israeli companies, but we've actually already invested in 4 American companies and an Australian company, and we're more than happy, and we're actually quite excited to start seeing deal flow from the startup ecosystem in Korea. We're looking at startups from actually 12 countries right now. So whether or not we're going to make an investment in the next few months, I can't say, but that's really how we're going to scale this thing. We're going to make it the place to go, whether you want to make an investment in an Israeli company or a Korean company or a British company. You know that the place to go to find these high-quality deals is going to be on our website.
So when you make investments, what do you really offer to startups, and what do you get from them?
So what we get is equity. We take a stake in the company. We also generally try to negotiate some sort of control over the company. We want to make sure we're managing our investment intelligently. So we get a board seat. We make sure to get some sort of investor protections. But what we try to give, and I have to be honest, all the VCs in the world will say we add value. We add value in this way or that way. What we try to give to companies is a lot more than just capital. I mentioned briefly earlier that when a startup goes to a VC and they're expecting business development help, they're going to be getting help from 1 or 2 or 3 of the partners. We're going to access connections and help those companies succeed. But what we're really giving the company is access to literally thousands of people around the world, largely wealthy individuals who have been successful in whatever their fields are, who are now getting a financial stake in your company. So as a founder of that startup, you realize you're not just going to be getting the connections from 1 or 2 partners, you're going to be getting the connections from thousands and thousands of people who have a stake in your company's success. So that really opens up a whole new world of what crowdfunding means. It's not just crowdfunding the capital for those companies, you're actually crowd building those companies. You're crowdsourcing business development for them. And obviously we haven't had an exit yet, but I'm sure that over the next few years, as we start to see our companies succeed, a lot of it's going to be because we're getting the support from these thousands of people around the world.
So could you tell us the vision of OurCrowd?
So our vision is twofold. On the small scale, we really want an angel investor who says to himself or herself, I want to get involved in a startup in Israel. We want to become the destination for them. That's the first thing I think of. If I want to see startups in Israel, I can either fly there myself, or I can go to OurCrowd.com and start looking at quality deal flow that I know has been vetted. On the broader scale, what our vision is we want to expand that beyond Israel. We want to become the address for anyone in the world who's looking for the highest quality, the most likely to succeed early stage companies they can find online, do research, and make investments in. And I think that we're fast on our way to doing that.
Wow. So what would you really like to say to, could be investors, startups, could be audience? What would you like to tell them?
I guess first message is to startups, and that is contact us. I'm sure there will be details below and whatnot, but send us your information. We want to have a talk with you. We want to look at your business plan. We want to look at your team. And as I said before, we've already invested in American companies and in Australian companies, and we're looking abroad right now. So we really want you to get at us. For investors, I think that there's already a great awareness of the Israeli startup scene, and OurCrowd is pretty much the best way, if you're an angel investor, to approach the Israeli startup scene, to find good companies and to make investments. And before you know it, we're going to be not just in Israel, we're going to be abroad as well. So that's my message to you. If you want to start getting involved in startup investing, check us out.